So, it seems that Pakistani brides are being tricked into marrying Chinese men and then being sent back to China to become slaves. Let's take a look at the story. So the BBC has reported that Pakistani brides being trafficked to China. So the story is about a lady whose name is Sophia, and not her real name. She married a Chinese man after her pastor made introductions. So this is happening mainly in the Christian community in Pakistan. And she was 19, he was 21. She was a trained beautician, and he was a businessman selling cosmetics. Her family didn't have much money, but the groom generously offered to pay all the wedding expenses. So, this is one of those things where it almost seems like when it's too good to be true, it is too good to be true. But, alarm bells weren't raised at this point. But being in the Christian community in Pakistan, being a minority, obviously they don't have as much money, and this actually, they took advantage of this, right, these people. So then what happened was, the proceedings took place in strict accordance with Pakistani customs. This pleased her parents, who felt that the daughter's new Chinese husband respected local traditions. There's a formal proposal, followed by a henna ceremony, and finally the barat, where a procession arrives at the bride's house, vows are exchanged, and the bride leaves to start a new life with her husband. But within a month, the woman who wants to be known only as Sophia would be back at her parents' house. She escaped what she now believes was a racket to traffic Pakistani women into a life of sexual servitude in China. Salim Iqbal, a Christian human rights activist who had been tracking such marriages, says he believes at least 700 women, mostly Christian, had wed Chinese men in over a year. What happens at many of these women is unknown. What happens to many of these women is unknown, but Human Rights Watch says they are at risk of sexual slavery. So this is happening now. When we think of ISIS, we think of, slaves, how they made slaves out of the Yazidi women. But this is actually happening elsewhere in the world too, to these poor Christian women. In recent weeks, more than 24 Chinese nationals and local Pakistani middlemen, including at least one Catholic priest, were arrested in connection with alleged sham marriages. Pakistan Federal Investigation Agency told the BBC that gangs of Chinese criminals are trafficking Pakistani women in the garb of marriage into the sex trade. It said one gang posed as engineers working on a power project while arranging weddings and sending women to China for fees ranging from $12,000 to $25,000 per woman. It just shows you how profitable this whole venture is. Even though they're paying, $10,000 to $30,000, they're still making money off of these slaves. Christian women who come from a mostly poor and marginalized community are seen to be particularly trafficked by traffickers who pay their parents hundreds or thousands of dollars. So in that culture, especially if you're a woman, you're the responsibility of the father, of the man of the house. But as soon as you get married, you're the responsibility of that man now. So it's a lessening of the emotional burden, of a financial burden on the family. So a lot of times in the poorer families, it's one less head to feed, right? China, of course, has denied that Pakistani women are being trafficked into prostitution, saying that several media reports have fabricated facts and spread rumors. Yeah, right, China. Admit to your... Of course, they're not going to admit to the dirty business, right? But it admitted this week there has been a surge in Pakistani brides applying for visas this year, with 140 applications in the year to date, a similar amount to all of 2018. So there's a lot of visa applications. An official from the Chinese embassy in Islamabad told local media it had blocked at least 90 applications. So then it goes on to say that this is an imbalanced society. A rise in cases of suspected bride trafficking from Pakistan to China has come amid an unprecedented influx of tens of thousands of Chinese nationals into the country. China is investing billions of dollars in the China-Pakistan economic corridor, a network of ports, roads, railways, and energy products. So, and then it goes on to say that Some are believed to be making the journey to find a bride. They're actually going there just to find a bride. Researchers say that the legacy of China's decades-long one-child policy and accompanying social preference for boys over girls has created an imbalanced society where millions of men are unable to find wives. For years, this has fueled bride trafficking from several poor Asian countries, including Vietnam, Myanmar, and Cambodia, where activists say many women are promised jobs in China but then sold into marriage. It appears that easy access to Pakistan may have created a new trafficking hotspot. So hopefully the government is going to take care of the situation and not let this happen, and investigate all of the cases of marriages happening between these Chinese men and these Pakistani women. So then it just goes on to tell you what's happened in the FIA's investigation and BBC interviews with activists and victims suggest that some Pakistani clergy are playing a role in identifying local brides and certifying the religious credentials of Chinese suitors. After the weddings, the couples take up residence in a number of big bungalows rented by suspected traffickers in Lahore and other cities. From there, they are sent to China. So this one lady, Sophia, she noticed some red flags. She began to feel uncomfortable about her marriage before it had even happened. She was made to undergo medical tests ahead of the formal proposal, and the broker then pushed for the wedding to happen immediately. My family felt uncomfortable with this haste, but he said the Chinese would pay for all of the wedding expenses, she says. The family gave in. So yet again, taking advantage of poor people. A week later, she found herself at a house in Lahore with several other newlywed couples who were waiting for the travel documents to be processed. The Pakistani women spent most of their time learning Chinese. I imagine that could be quite a scary situation, that you're going to be going back to a country where you don't even know anybody, you can't even speak the language. Imagine how that feels. It was at this point she learned that her husband was not a Christian, nor was he interested in committing himself to her. They could barely communicate due to the language barrier, but he repeatedly demanded sex. She decided to leave after speaking to a friend who had moved to China for a marriage. She told Sophia she was being forced to have sex with her husband's friends, but when Sophia confided in the marriage broker, he was furious. He said her parents would have to pay back the cost of the wedding, including fees paid to a local pastor for arranging the match and conducting the ceremony. Her parents refused to pay and traveled to Lahore to rescue her. Her handler eventually relented. So she got lucky. She was still in Pakistan. Her family got involved and he had to let go of her, right? Because of course the handler is also at risk of being arrested, right? Although recent police raids have focused attention on the trafficking of poor Christian girls, the BBC has found that Muslim communities are also affected. A Muslim woman from a poor Lahore neighborhood who went to China with her husband in March said she had to put up with repeated physical abuse because she refused to sleep with his drunk visitors. My family is quite religious, so they had agreed to the proposal because it was brought by the cleric of a seminary which is located in a neighborhood, the woman said, who wanted to be known as Mina. But so basically she's saying that even the clergy, the local mullahs or maybe even the pastors are involved in this trafficking. They seem to know what's going on, and yet they're not protecting these women. But once in China, I discovered my husband was not a Muslim. In fact, he did not adhere to any religion. He made fun of me when I prayed. When she refused to have sex with men on his orders, she was beaten up and threatened. He said he had bought me with money, and I had no choice but to do what he asked me to do, and that if I didn't do it, he would kill me and sell my organs to recover his money. Mina was rescued in early May by Chinese authorities on the request of Pakistan embassy officials who had been alerted by the family. So she had managed to tell her family, and the Pakistani embassy had got involved. A senior FIA official in Faisalabad, Jamil Ahmed Mayo, not Mayo like mayonnaise, it's a cool name, told the BBC that women deemed not good enough for the sex trade were at risk of organ harvesting. Wow. The FIA has not provided evidence to corroborate the FIA has not provided evidence to corroborate the allegations, and Beijing has firmly denied such practices are occurring. According to investigations by the Ministry of Public Security of China, there is no forced prostitution or sale of human organs for those Pakistani women who stay in China after marriage with Chinese, the Chinese embassy in Islamabad said in a statement. It did stress, however, that joint investigations, the Pakistani authorities were ongoing, adding, "We will never allow a few criminals to undermine the friendship between China and Pakistan or hurt the friendly feelings between the two people." So obviously, this isn't to say that Pakistanis should not trust Chinese or anything like that. It just goes to show that when a situation arises that is vulnerable to abuse, extra precautions have to be taken so that the weak and the vulnerable are not taken advantage of. Right? There needs to be laws. There needs to be punishments and fines, and the two governments need to work together to make sure that this doesn't happen. But often nobody cares about these poor families and these poor victims. Thankfully, in this case, it looks like, at least with Meena, her family got involved. The Pakistani embassy managed to get involved, and she was rescued. In the other case of Sophia, she managed to get her family involved before she even got there. Some women are not so lucky. So hopefully that stuff like this will stop, and but it obviously, money and sex are the most powerful, two of the most powerful influences, and continue to guide people's decision making, even when people are being used and abused, young girls. And it just goes to show you that it's not just ISIS, but this is happening in other places in the world. We don't often talk about it, but these things are happening before our very eyes. And so we should, I guess, at least we can raise awareness, and hopefully these communities will understand and will be alerted to such things happening, and so it doesn't happen again. Thanks for watching. This is Abdullah Samir with this quick video, signing out.